Hey, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Coffee.
I just had to rush over and to the other screen and put my do not disturb thing on. Sometimes I forget.
Oh, I should do that too. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and the sun is coming out, so that's a good sign, even though we're supposed to get another dump.
I hope not,
Me
but that's
too.
okay.
So we have an event coming up this week, right? In Vaughan, a clubhouse
It's the first
opening.
one, the first big
And
launch.
we have so many people interested and excited to go. And let's just hope the weather holds out because they're supposed to have a bad storm tomorrow.
That is, yes. So that's the only thing that worries me. So again, this is our first of the clubhouses that are launching. We have quite a few that are coming up.
Yeah.
And then of course you look at the weather and you're like, oh, come on.
Well, see, that's the problem. And I think, unfortunately, we try when we're in our masterminds, for example, a lot of our members, say, well, this didn't work out because the weather and this, but sometimes it's true. Sometimes
Yeah, it is.
Nothing you can do. The weather is the weather. And so
The weather is the weather. Exactly. And we were just talking about like, we hope this happens, and we're like, oh, but the weather, and that just comes part and parcel of living in Canada. We do what we can do. We function the best that we can between November and March. And a lot of things end up getting canceled, a lot of things you just have to really take that extra time and weather.
Well, people always ask. It's really interesting because people always go, well, why are all the the big conferences and events always like in Arizona or California or Miami or now
This is why.
Because generally speaking, especially places like Arizona, like nothing changes there.
I think it rains like once a year. It's the desert.
Yeah, unless you're going to Vegas and one of the 6 days it rains is when we were there.
Yeah, what did they say? It rains 5 days a year, and we were there for 3 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not okay.
Anyway, busy week this week because again, we're launching the in-person event with one of our clubhouses, which is great. And we have a busy week because obviously we're running the Foundations Mastermind, which is all about creating your dream business. And so much going on in between everything. So very busy week, no matter what the weather's like.
Well, and I have to be head down because I'm speaking. So I'm hoping the weather clears up because this weekend here in Toronto on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday is PodCamp.
Yes.
So PodCamp is they haven't had it. I don't know if they had it last year. They may have gone virtual. I don't remember because I've just sort of lost track of all the conferences and everything. But I actually spoke there 3 years ago, so 2020, when they had it February of 2020. And of course, then the whole world shut down. But so you kind of forget. It was like, oh, how long ago was it? So I started looking back going, oh, was it it was actually really funny because I saw a lot of pictures of you and I was like, 2017? I'm like, no, was it 2018? I'm in a time warp.
Yeah.
Like the whole COVID thing put me in a complete time warp. So I'm literally, that's how far back I was going, like 2018, was it 2019? And I'm like trying to find when I spoke and because it's hard to remember, I don't know, but when you speak, I don't sound, braggy, but when you speak at a lot of conferences, it's hard to remember.
Well, it's true. Just when I'm speaking at the Canadian Franchise Association, their annual event, I'm doing it 1st of March sometime. Can't remember the date. Anyway, same thing. I'm like, did it happen last year? Did it not happen? I can't remember because you're in a fog. But what are you speaking about on is it Saturdays?
Saturday. So Saturday afternoon. So I love my time slot. So it's very interesting. I'm always, when you talk about big conferences, time slots are very important.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of people who are speaking after lunch on Sunday. And I feel bad for them.
Terrible, worst time slots you can have, guys. Never accept those if you can avoid it.
Absolutely. So I'm later in the afternoon on Saturday, and right after me is the big networking, big event that they're having. So for me, I feel like I have the best time slot. So thank you to PodCamp for giving me the best time slot. Not loving first thing in the morning, but I also don't want the end of the conference. And I've done that before. and literally 3/4 of the people are already gone. So
you have to. You have to know what the conference is about, obviously, and how it plays. Like for me, I've got Sunday at 10, which is perfect because everyone is there on the Sunday. Everyone is there on a Sunday, right? Monday, not so much because they have to work, and Saturday, the first day, not so much either. But the one in the middle for this conference is usually a really good one. So. And morning is great because people are staying over because it's it's not in the middle of the city. So
exactly. So know your
anyway,
conference.
so going back to what you're talking about.
So I'm talking about community and podcasting.
Okay.
So we've had a lot of experience over the past X amount of months building our community. So we understand sort of what it takes. But I guess what I'm doing, I'm actually just going through the slides literally this morning. And what I'm doing is a spin on, most people will say, build your podcast and then build a community around it.
Right.
Like every single solitary article that's out there is start your podcast and build a community around it. So, start, your Facebook group, tell them where to go, your LinkedIn group or whatever. And we both know how much we despise, single platform communities. So I'm actually going to take the opposite approach. Is I want to introduce a different concept. So my concept at this particular conference is talking about building your community first,
right?
And then building your podcast after you've built a community,
right?
Because what that enables you to do, even though they are intertwined, is the launch is amazing. And I actually have top charts screenshots of my past clients who have done this exact model. So I'm proving the concept. I did it first with my own model. We did it with Mastermind City when we launched our podcast, and I have other clients that did the same thing. I know it works. Like I have a proven method, and that's what I'm really looking forward to teaching when I do our podcast Mastermind later on this year. So that's what I'm talking about, because I want them to understand that there's not just a one way to do things. And I feel like that's all that's being taught is start your podcast and sunshine and rainbows and everything will happen, dancing on unicorns on clouds or whatever you want to say. So every article, if you look, that's what you're finding.
Well, it's interesting because if as we teach people how to launch their digital products online, what's the number one thing that we tell them to do is build your list. Right. Like build your list, because if you don't have a list, even if it's a small list, at least there'll be a small list that will support you. So even if you had 100 people on your list, let's say that's all you had, at least you'd have 100 people that support you and therefore will go and listen to your podcast and download it. But if you don't have a list, it's so much harder to just show up and say, okay, do the podcast. Yeah, people might find you when they're looking up that niche, right? They might find you, but very hard to do. A lot harder than if you actually can send out to your list, your community, right? Hey, I'm doing a podcast, come and follow me. So much better. Then I know you have a lot of strategies in place to do that. And absolutely. So I think that's important. I think the differentiation, that's why people should go to your session. The differentiation is that listen to something different, right? And that's exactly what we do with our masterminds, right? Everyone has this preconceived notion of masterminds where it's you just share information for an hour and then you leave. That's not what we do. No. We train, we get involved, we do Q&As, we do hot seats, we do full blown so that you can walk away knowing exactly what to do, and you use your mastermind group to actually vet out your ideas. You do all of that in the process. So again, you have to look around and go, what are people doing differently? If you're listening to somebody that's doing exactly the same thing as somebody else, then you can just pick out any generic person. So you got to find out.
You can Google that.
Yeah.
I guess that's the part, because I actually started to spend some time Googling.
Right.
Literally like build a community first and podcasting, but I literally cannot find. So that's why I'm actually really excited about sharing this on Saturday, because I can't find any articles that talks about the strategy that I'm about to teach.
Right.
Which is interesting. So apparently I need to write an article about that.
Well, no, actually, I have a better idea, Stacy. Why don't you turn your presentation into a masterclass
Mm-hmm.
so that our viewers, our subscribers, and our community can actually benefit from that? I mean, that's the beauty of being able to look at things afterwards and sharing it with your community. Like whatever we develop now, we just give it to our community. We like, here you go. Here's something
Exactly.
else that you guys can learn. It's I'm going to be talking about AI in the franchise world. Interesting, right? And so
Yeah,
even though it's the franchise world, it applies to just about anybody who owns a business. So those,
exactly.
and we were talking about for months, talking about we need to do something on AI. So this is kind of like a trigger into it. But for podcasting, I think your session is probably dramatically different than most of them.
Well,
Because
it's
most
going
of
to be,
them,
and I'm actually really excited because, again, I can't take any prior research because it doesn't exist, but I know that I have the proven method because
yeah,
I know it works because I have
right.
proof in the pudding. Like I
Yeah.
know it works.
So
So
who can go? Who can? Is this is strictly in person, or is there a virtual component to it at
there is
all?
not. It is in Toronto. It is downtown. It is at Toronto Metropolitan University. The tickets are free, but they get hundreds and hundreds of people flooding in for the Friday. Friday. It starts Friday night with sort of a kickoff, and then it's all
Yeah.
day Saturday and all day Sunday.
So anyone who's listening can actually go grab tickets
Yeah,
because that's Friday. That's coming up. Oh,
yeah,
Saturday.
Saturday and
Friday.
Sunday. But I'm speaking Saturday afternoon, so
Right. So
as
it's
a
only a
as a
couple
personal
days
blog.
away. And
Exactly.
before that is our Vaughn Clubhouse launch. So it's a very
Yes,
busy week.
very busy week. Yeah. But I want to give a shout out just to change flow just slightly. I want to give a shout out to people who fully respect people's time,
Okay.
to fully respect conversations that are happening online, proposals going back, saying they'll do something and they actually do it, and saying they'll do something and actually come back and say, no, I'm not doing it right now, I'm doing it then, and actually doing it. Like
Okay.
I just find that it's not typical
Okay.
anymore, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
So now that you're like, what's she talking
Well,
about?
now you got to tell us what, because that's kind of like, otherwise it would make no sense whatsoever.
Right. So I was talking to somebody who I reconnected with on LinkedIn, and this is, again, social media is still an amazing way when you all of a sudden somebody shows up in your feed and you're like, oh, I haven't talked to that person in a really long time. Click, let's set up a time to chat. And he wanted to find out more. So it was actually interesting. So he originally reached out because he wanted to find out more about our community and the masterminds and what we were doing and all of that kind of stuff, which was great. So got to jump on a call with him. He's like, oh, actually, that sounds really interesting. I actually might be interested in running a clubhouse locally. Like that wasn't what he originally thought, but once he found out about it, he's like, oh, that's more than what I thought.
Right.
Amazing. So what he said was at the time, listen, I'm under the wire for the next 2 weeks. Can I reach out to you? And
that's usually code for
go away.
Yeah.
You can follow up, however.
Yeah.
But he literally sends me a note this morning and says, I've looked at your stuff. Now I'm even more intrigued.
Oh.
I have you on my calendar to connect with you on this date. I might be interested in running a mastermind.
Awesome.
So he goes, somebody's starting today. I just got to get them hired. I'm going to connect with you next week. And he's like, I haven't. And you know what? Because he said 2 weeks ago that he would connect with me in 2 weeks, he did.
Yep.
He didn't just kind of, wait for me. He connected with me. And then he told me the date that he has me scheduled to connect with me next week. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great when that, I have two similar things this week. One was I'm working on behalf of a client and with the software piece, and I told them I have a couple months. There's a couple months, and I wasn't putting them off, but I was like, I just can't do it now because we're not in the right position. And they tried calling like 4 or 5 times, and I was starting to get annoyed because I said I would call you, right?
Yeah.
And so I think they must have called 4, 5, 10 times. And I just ignored it because I was just like, I already told them my position. And then 2 days ago, I sent him a note and I said, okay, we can talk. And he was just floored. He was just like, oh, you really were serious. And I'm like, I told you I wasn't ready for it. I'm ready now. And then the other piece, which I thought was really interesting, is I got a totally, like, so people are always like, cold emails don't work, right?
Yeah.
Everyone always says that. I'm a believer that they do when the time is right eventually. Right. So I got a cold email, totally cold, about a product, a software product that would be potentially really great for our client. And it was, you could tell it was form with my name on it. And I just was like, that sounds really right timing for what I'm doing. So I answered them back and I said, look, and I first of all, it was very funny because I got to tell you guys, remember, check your emails, because even though this didn't stop me from connecting, it said the subject was, Faye, do you have time to connect on Thursday? Right. And I was like, well, that's a good headline, right? Good headline. So, okay, that was a subject. But in the balance, which is again form, but you think it's custom, at the balance was, can I call you on Tuesday? And they didn't match, right? So I wrote her back and I said, look, sometimes cold emails work and I'm actually interested, but you got to get your act together because they don't match.
Email.
And I said, and reach out to me in a week, because this week's horrendous. Reach out to me in a week and we'll connect. So for those of you who think that cold emails are a waste of time, you probably have to send out, remember, open, like to conversion rate. If you can get a 1% conversion rate, that's massive. Massive. Yeah. It's massive in anything you do. 2 to 3 is fantastic. If you can get a 4%, you're like living the high life, right? Yeah. So even if she had to send out 1,000 emails to get my one that I'm interested, it was worth her time. So,
Absolutely.
So don't, if you guys are out there and going, oh, it's not going to work, it's not going to work. It is. And you're going to get people that say, stop emailing me. And you're going to have people that say, I don't like this, I'm unsubscribing. Fine. Right. It's cold in terms of, it's an outreach, and this was an outreach. It wasn't this wasn't a CRM that went out. So there's nothing wrong with you reaching out via a real email, your email address to people. Yeah. They don't have to be on your list because this is not a list email.
Yeah.
Technically it is, it's a copy, but they customized it with,
but it's an outreach.
Why there was a disconnect with Tuesday, Thursday. But there's nothing wrong with it. You're allowed to do that. That's legal. Absolutely. So, so I just wanted to give you guys a bit of a hope. So for those of you who are going to be at Stacy's speech and listening to about community, she's going to teach you how to build basically a list through community, right?
Well, and I think what people don't realize, again, that outreach is, it's basically math. Yeah. So if you reach out to 100 people, and you get 10, which would be amazing, that 10%. You got 10, people to say, yes, I'll jump on a call with you.
Yeah.
And then one of those people convert. That's 1 out of 100. But how long did it take? So that's why I would say it's like time math. How long would it take to send out 100? Right. How long would it take to get, to spend those 10 people on a call? And then to land that client. So there's your client acquisition cost.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know what that number is.
No. Well, a lot of people don't. They always do the same thing. Well, I sent out to my list and nobody responded, which we've had lots of times happen to us. Lots of times. And you realize that your list isn't that great. Right?
Well, sometimes you do. And then I also know because we're doing outreach, I'm inviting people one by one, literally, through LinkedIn to come and join our community. And our response is at a 50%.
Right.
So out of the people that I send messages to, 50% of the people are joining the community.
But we're also being very selective in the people that we are inviting in. So the people that you're selecting are people that will benefit from our community. You're not
Absolutely.
just sending it random and hoping that, it's a
Well,
fit.
that's the other piece for sure.
So those are the kind of lessons that you're going to learn. You go to PodCamp on Saturday, or come back here, and eventually we will be having a masterclass and stuff for you too. We have some
We have
challenges.
our Master Monthly coming up. What are we talking about next month on Master Monthly?
Podcasting.
There we go. I wonder what I'll be talking about. I can't imagine.
Yeah, so that's actually perfect, because that's what we want. We want that masterclass to be live, and they're available to our entire community. And sometimes those things just happen. So we talked about having a masterclass for our community, and look, it's going to magically happen. And this wasn't planned, guys, which is very interesting. But yeah, I think there's just tremendous opportunity for everyone, but you have to have the right list. You have to have that segment that really appeals to what you're trying to give out there. So if your list isn't working, then it's just that it's not segmented right. And you have to start now segmenting down and doing emails to each individual group and what's important to them. So yeah, cold outreach works. Community building to get them to come listen to your podcast works, right? All of these things work. It's just pretty much most ideas work if you actually do the work.
Well, you had, and last week in our Business Foundations Mastermind, you were talking about audience and understanding, who your customer is, who your target audience is, all of that. And yes, that was a lot of work to put in. However, it was really important, because if you don't know, then sending out 100 cold messages is not going to work. Right? You have to do that piece first, which is why we do the Foundations Mastermind first, obviously, because if you don't have all of that stuff done, then all of your outreach is going to be for naught. Your ads or anything to start building your list is going to be a waste of your time.
Yeah. And, it's interesting, because as I was writing it this week, what just on what we want to train this week, which is all about strategy, operations, and revenue, basically understanding the money, which people like to not do. So this is a tough one this week, because it's a lot of talking about things that you don't want to talk about. And what's interesting, though, as I was writing it, like we dig down really deep when we're doing, for example, developing a product, a digital product, right? And understanding how to sell it. We do a lot of information. And then what I realized this week was, some people don't even have that basic understanding of pricing and revenue and money to start their business, right? They just have an idea. Oh, I'm going to start it. They don't have an idea really of the segmentation of the audience. They don't have an idea of, what they should be charging and when are they profitable. They don't have any of those basics. And a lot of people fall down because, they think to themselves, I'm going to sell $100,000 in product, which is great, but they don't realize that it costs them, $99,000 to produce it. You know what I mean? So they don't really look at how those. So in terms of, building your list and your community, that's how you get to the number where it becomes the only difference. Because there's a lot of great products out there, great services, and great, information that people put out there, but they didn't realize that their costs involved is not generating any profit. And that's when everyone folds, right? Yeah. They realize that it's not working after only a couple of months. It's not working. And so rather than adjust and understand the model, they quit. And we've seen it all. I was just actually looking at someone's website, and I couldn't get past there's a gateway from ClickFunnels. They were using ClickFunnels, and there was a pop-up that said, learn more about ClickFunnels. And I could see the background, right? I couldn't understand. And then I realized, they quit, right? And so ClickFunnels, they never disconnected their URL. So ClickFunnels very smartly put that gate on. So they just left it there and said, cool, people will buy our product. But I could kind of see their stuff behind, and I realized how much work went into it. And then they just said, it's not working, I'm going to quit. Rather than, I don't know if they changed or did something else. I couldn't find any information on the company. But again, just because you put it out there, it doesn't mean people will come.
It's true. Sometimes the field of dreams of if you build it, they will come doesn't happen. And that happens a lot with podcasts. And that's why people lose steam.
Yeah.
Because they see and they put it out and they're like, but I was told if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Right? That's what everyone says. So I'm saying no. Same thing with a business or a digital product. If you build it, they will come. Well, no, there's a lot of back end work to do in order to have a good list, a good community, and people ready to buy when you put a product out, as opposed to if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a year or two to get people. So you have to figure out how you can muddle through until it connects with everyone. Because as you and I know, it doesn't take 6 or 7 times to see something before you understand. Now it's like 20 times because there's no attention span. Things are going past you at rapid rate. Remember the blue ocean strategy, right? Now it's like red ocean. There's so many people out there. There's so many people out there doing it that you really have to say, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to make sure I understand my model. It's going to take me a while, but it's not going to be overnight anymore.
Right. And it wasn't. I mean, we talked.
It's not overnight, but you know what I mean.
You know, your son was a 6-year overnight success.
Yeah. And I always remember that, 6 years, 400 videos later, boom, it hit. Well, nobody looks at all that time it took to get there and they go, oh, that's a great job. He's got a great job. Well, yeah, but he worked at it, right?
Exactly.
And that's the same as anything. It's not any different than getting a real job, right? Like if you get a real bricks and mortar job, right? Where you walk in and you start at the ground level and then you work your way up. It takes you years to make it to the C-suite. So nobody just hands it to you. But when people are thinking about their podcast or digital products, they think that somehow that's different and overnight they should be a success.
Viral. Yeah.
Right?
And they look viral success just because I
know just as much as that person. Why am I not there? Well, that's why we do our entire visibility mastermind, right? Like we dig deep into how you can be visible in every section and how you can make it work. I mean, if you look at our followers now, we don't have massive followers, but we have followers that are connected with us. That's more important. And that's the distinction people make. If you're running a podcast and you have 100,000 subscribers, but nobody's really doing anything other than occasionally listening to you, it's not worth it. I'd rather have 200 people that are, buying my products or my services, right?
Yep.
And that's who I'm doing my podcast for. Those 200 people, not the 100,000 that are going to do nothing.
Exactly. Very true. On that note, I wish you all a good morning, the rest of your day, and we